welcome to Kindred, the podcast where we get to talk to someone about their work in conservation in a way that is like a dream to me and just so amazing. Do you not agree, sister?
I do agree.
Yes.
I do agree. Yes,
Well,
it was amazing.
so amazing. I am green with envy after this interview we have for you today. Let me tell you, there's just something about it. Je ne sais quoi, shall I
Look at
say.
you.
I know so many different languages.
You're not from Namibia, but boy, that's multicultural right there.
Oh man, I would love to be from there. Yeah, this method of conservation we are covering today is so different. It reminds me a bit of our previous guest, in the episode called Range Rider in the Lads with
Mhm.
Daniel Curry,
I
right?
was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
He and his dogs work in wolf conservation. If you haven't listened to that episode, it's fantastic. But just there's a lot about it, which will all come clear any minute now. And I'm just going to jump right in with our guest today. But before we begin, I just want to remind our listeners about a few things. So we are on YouTube. Clap into the microphone. Okay, I'll do it by myself.
It was very quiet.
Well, I know it's not really good clapping.
You got to get some more there.
No, I
like
can't hear that
Sounds
either.
more like- you
Oh,
can't? Oh.
that's all right. We'll work on that for next season. So yes, we are on YouTube. So head over to YouTube and find our account there and subscribe, where you will get more video content. And we will also be uploading our entire episodes for you to listen to, which is super exciting. I'm hearing from the youngsters and other people around the globe,
Yep.
that a lot of people are loving podcasts on YouTube. So here you are. We aim to please. I think they just put it on and get on their merry way. It's not like they're sitting there watching, but just another way to listen.
Yeah, and some do watch. I think a lot of people watch, which to me is so funny because the whole
Boy,
the whole thing that brought me to podcast was the
Right.
fact that you don't have to watch. That you can
Totally.
walk around and do your stuff. But you know what? I am not the young people, so what do
Well,
I know?
But I think like also there's times where you and I are just sort of sitting there for a long time, quiet. Are we
Mhm.
frozen? Not sure. Is our Wi-Fi working?
Right.
But yes.
Yeah.
So also, if you love what you're about to hear today, please consider subscribing through Apple Podcasts, where you will get more Kindred content that I really, truly think you're gonna love. It's a bit of a different vibe, which is really fun. And you get a free month free right off the bat. So check it out. It's a
Yeah.
good way to, yeah. I mean, I do love our K plus community content. It's a different vibe. Like I said, it's fun. And we don't edit that one. So you get what you get, people. So read all about it.
Sorry, or you're welcome, depending on your perspective, I guess.
Oh, yes. I mean, we're very welcome a lot of the time.
We are.
Okay, so now for our guest today. Today we are speaking with Tim Hofmann. He is a certified dog trainer with several years of experience working with dogs in various conservation settings. Since 2018, Tim has been leading the Scat Detection Dog project for the Cheetah Conservation Fund in Namibia. His expertise extends to field projects across Namibia and Angola, where he works with his dogs to detect and conserve rare wildlife species. Tim holds a master's degree in nature conservation biology and is currently pursuing a Ph.D. in wildlife sciences, which very much comes into play with his work at CCF.
Mhm.
Tim is passionate about innovative wildlife conservation approaches, and his work focuses on the intersection of dog training and conservation biology. So now you see why I said this is a job I'm green with envy over. I mean, I think it's like, I don't know, what a dream to me to be out in some of the most beautiful landscapes in the world with an amazing, sweet dog, all the while in support of wildlife conservation. Does
And
it?
somebody pays you for that. Yeah.
And you get to do a PhD on it too.
Right. That's right.
This guy is killing life. I mean, who made him that smart? And he gets to do all these things. I think he also pinches himself. So, and Tim even jokes at one point about if someone came out into the field with him and with one of his detection dog, they might even be like super bored because they're like, "Aren't you just walking your dog?" Do you
Right.
remember
Yeah.
talking about that?
I do, but I can't imagine it would be boring to just
No,
be
of
out on a
course
walk
not.
in
Of
Namibia.
course not. Of
But
course not.
yes,
But
like,
still, that was
yes,
hilarious. He was like,
yes. They think I was just walking my dog. Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
And also, many of you will recognize CCF from a previous episode where we spoke with Dr. Laurie Marker, the executive director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund. That's titled The Cheetah's Longest Race, another amazing conversation about just such an incredible species. Oh, just also a quick mention that we had some Wi-Fi connection challenges. So there are a few moments where there's just a bit of a pause here and there. But that's what happens when you are recording 7,400-ish miles apart and they're in the
Hmm.
bush. So,
Yeah, right,
you know,
exactly.
those satellites, yeah. So, and also I will add for those of you who might not know what scat is, it is just good old fashioned poop. So,
Hmm.
just as I've heard some people don't know what scat is, which is all fair in love and poop and conservation. So, let's head down to the stunning country of Namibia and a place that is absolutely on my list and meet Tim Hofmann and his incredible team of scat detection dogs. See you at the takeaway. Tim, welcome to Kindred and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. Will you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tim, and I'm living and working in Namibia for the past 7 years. And I work for the Cheetah Conservation Fund, running the Scat Detection Dog program.
Amazing, amazing. Have you always lived there or are you an expat?
Um, I'm not sure if I would call it an expat, but
Okay,
I've
okay,
been living in Germany pretty much most of my life and
okay.
moved to Namibia in
Very good.
2018, so 7 years
Okay.
ago. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, Tim, you are not the first person we've been lucky enough to speak with at the CCF. Our listeners will remember that we spoke with your boss a while back, Dr. Laurie Marker, the executive director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, all about cheetah conservation and just the amazing animal that they are. And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to that episode, scroll back through and look for the episode titled The Cheetah's Longest Race. Incredible what you all are doing for cheetah conservation around the world. Just an amazing organization. So thanks so much for being here today. So, Tim, we have asked you here to talk to us all about your work in scat detection in context to cheetah conservation, which is a method of wildlife monitoring and research where dogs are trained to locate specific types of wildlife scat or feces, for those who don't know, and is used to study a whole host of information in wildlife populations, such as diet, health, genetics, but we'll get to all of that. Um, I'd love for you to start us off with how you came to work with dogs in scat detection. How did you find yourself in Namibia tracking wildlife with dogs for CCF?
I can give a very long answer. The classic one
Let's get a
with my
short to
childhood
medium
saying,
answer. Uh-huh.
okay, but let me still say I grew up with animals. I had them my whole life, especially dogs, and loved dog training. And sort of throughout my time at university, I eventually ended up with a Weimaraner, a strong
Mm,
working breed, who told me quite quickly that he really likes to have a job.
mm.
So we kind of, yeah, I figured out that we need to do something ideally together to keep him
Right.
entertained and me sane, to be super
Yes.
honest.
Yeah,
And
right.
he's
Yeah.
he's a working breed. And we'll just tell those who don't know what I'll say Weimaraner. They're the big grayish, silveryish, beautiful
Yeah.
dogs. They're very sweet. They're big. Yes, so that's the Weimaraner, but continue.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Um, and eventually I met someone who was using his dog for detection of scat. So basically using his dog to research, to produce scientific data and learn about animals. And since, like I said, I was studying nature conservation, that's what I wanted to do. And he really, got me used to the idea of that I could actually be using my dog as part of my job.
That's so cool.
Um,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was pretty quickly very hooked on the idea. We did a few projects in Germany, And then for my thesis, my master thesis, I already came down here to Namibia to CCF.
So when you
And
got
that's
your,
how it started.
okay, so when you got your dog, and what's your dog's name?
His name is Ole.
Ole. Ola? Ola. Ola.
Let's say that's fine.
Okay, maybe I'll call him Oli. Yeah. So when you got him, like, is this breed known for working in scat detection, or did you just kind of put two and two together and you're like, well, you're a working dog and this is what I do, and you are bored, so let's try it out.
So I wouldn't say they're necessarily known for scat detection. To be
Okay.
super honest, that's still a very young field of
Okay.
science, of research.
Oh, okay.
And
Interesting.
when I started, is by now unbelievably almost yeah 10 years ago. It was also at a different stage yet. So I wouldn't say there was a particular breed or kind of dog that you would use for this job,
Got it.
but you would surely go for a dog that has a high drive, that is eager on working with you as well. And the Weimaraner as a pointing dog surely fits in that category. So maybe it wasn't classic to use these kind of dogs for this work, but he surely fits in the category of dogs that would be used for this kind of work.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. And so and then is that's where you then in Germany you started working in scat detection then?
Correct.
And then
Actually,
how,
my very
okay.
first project, oh, sorry,
No, go ahead.
brought me to Macedonia, which was an
Oh,
absolutely incredible
Mm.
experience to work
wow.
on a subspecies of the European lynx.
Oh,
Um, and that's sort of, yeah, I mean, doing that work with your dog out in this kind of environment was fantastic.
I'm
Yeah, and the
yeah.
next
curious.
step was then Namibia.
Wow.
How long did it take your dog to learn what he needed to learn before you could go out in the field and start working?
So I want to say it took him a while longer than it would have, because I already used him for different kinds of jobs before that, and he was already
Uh,
a bit older.
I got
okay.
you.
And he's a hunting breed, so
Hmm.
surely his A game is hunting.
Yeah,
And it was always a sort of a bit like, yes, I can do scat detection for you, but that's not really what I love.
I got
Um,
you.
so it took us quite some time with him. I want to say a good 6 months, and that
Oh,
could
not
definitely
long.
go faster.
That's
Yeah.
still pretty
That's not
fast,
long. Yeah, I
honestly.
think it would take me longer to learn scat detection than him, so that's fast enough for me. Um, so okay, so then you go from Germany to, did you say where was the next place?
Macedonia.
Macedonia. And then how did you get connected to CCF then?
Honestly, I started researching. I
Okay.
always had a passion for Africa. I was always
Mm,
hoping that eventually I could work in Africa at some point. So
Okay.
I sat down, went online, and looked up all kinds of organizations.
got it.
Amazing.
Um, but at this point, I already wanted to do conservation dog work, and
Okay.
that narrowed it down very, very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
how I ended at CCF. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And then you're in a PhD program now. Had you started that program, or did that start when you got to CCF?
So I was already working at CCF for almost 3 years
Okay.
when we decided that I want to do that PhD.
Okay.
And that's again 4 years ago now, so I'm hoping to finish that up very soon, actually.
And tell us a bit about your PhD. How and the work within that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, happily. So the idea is basically to look into how we can use dogs most efficiently to survey for, in my case in particular, two species, the cheetah, of course, as we are the Cheetah Conservation Fund, but also the African wild dog.
Oh,
And
okay.
these species have a few things in common as they are very wide-ranging, difficult to detect, low population numbers. So it kind of makes sense to use dogs for this type of species. So I'm hoping that while I focus on these two, we can also draw some inferences for additional species.
Mm.
Okay.
And interestingly, while the field of using dogs in conservation is rapidly expanding, it's growing very fast.
Right.
There's still comparable little coverage on the African continent. So
Interesting.
for us, it was almost a given that we want to use that expertise we are producing here with our dogs to also share that basically.
That's so funny because I actually would assume that most of the dog detection, would be in on the African continent. So that's opposite to what I thought. So that's really interesting. And for people who don't know, because I'm pretty sure everyone's aware of the cheetah. Tell us a little bit about the African dog, what they look like, and sort of how because a lot of people they're an endangered species. Is that true? Yeah.
They are. That is correct.
They have the big ears.
Um,
Are they the ones with the really big ears?
And the spotty
exactly.
bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's them, right? Yeah.
They're not as creepy looking
Um,
as a hyena, I think. I think they're cuter.
They're
Actually.
very cute. And we love hyenas. I love shout out to hyenas. But yeah, so talk about the dogs.
Yeah, so I was almost tempted to start now with saying I actually find hyenas also very cute. But of course, I know what you mean.
Good for you. They just
love
look a little
them.
more menacing,
Oh,
Yeah.
wait till we do
Yeah.
our episode on them. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Um, and African wild dogs, I mean, they're absolutely charismatic species. They are not only like incredibly beautiful, they also have a very complex social system. So it's fascinating to learn about them.
Right.
And like you said, an endangered species, very little of the original range left, in just a few subpopulations.
Mm.
And they are particularly difficult to monitor because they are very elusive, so you don't necessarily are able to see them a lot. But the
Right.
biggest issue is that they're so wide-ranging. So a
Yes.
single pack is going to cover crazy areas.
Right.
And then you have the question of where do I look for them? How do I look for them? Do I use
Right.
camera traps? Do I want to collar dogs? Which is,
Right.
of course, produces a lot of information, but you need to find them first, right?
Right.
So it's quite difficult. And they are incredible hunters as well. So seeing them hunt is also quite a sight. So they are a very impressive species.
Amazing. And what is their prey generally?
So I want to say a medium-sized antelope,
Okay.
but since they are hunting in packs of sometimes can be a dozen dogs, even more or less, they can definitely take down larger prey as well. But I want to
Okay.
say the average prey is sort of like medium-sized.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for introducing. We need to do a whole episode on them. They're amazing animals. They're really,
Please.
they're beautiful, and they're, like you said, very charismatic. Okay, so let's get into scat detection and why this work is so valuable. So walk us through the methods you use to track the cheetahs and wild dogs and how you monitor their movements, populations, and behavior. We'd love to hear what goes into locating and collecting and processing the samples and what kinds of insights you're getting about these animals from that data.
Yeah. So of course, for me, the biggest first step is, of course, training the dogs, employing the dogs. But in terms of the actual work, let's start maybe after the job the dog did. So once my dog showed me a scat of, then hopefully, and usually it is the target species, I collect it, I take GPS coordinates, do little data recordings, and that's pretty much almost it from my side, apart from that I bring it back to CCF, enter everything in our database, and put the samples in the freezer.
Oh,
And
right.
from
Okay.
there is actually where our genetic lab starts. So we have a lab on site here at the Cheetah Conservation Fund.
Right. That
and
was a
they're
question. So
Exactly.
everything's, you're
That makes
very
it a lot easier
Yeah,
than to
very
have a lab right
self-sufficient.
there. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
great. That's awesome.
So when your dogs detect the scat, what kind of condition is it in? Like, because of the landscape that you're working in, tell us a little bit about that, because that sort of has an impact.
Yes, it does. So Namibia has a very prominent difference between wet and dry season, and we mainly work in the dry season simply because there's more to find. There's hardly any invertebrates that feed on scat, and
Right.
of course, there's no rain whatsoever that washes it away.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a good chance that a scat that I collect in September has actually been deposited in May.
Right.
And
Wow.
And it's been
that's-
sitting out
wow.
there baking away in the sun, right? And this is why, like, having an on-site lab, I think, like, is so important too, that you can, because, it's like, I just imagine it's like all bleached out and sort of broken down. It's amazing that they can even find them. But just to give people kind of a visual of scat, it is important to understand what you're dealing with.
And as long as it hasn't been rained on, it's still, you can get all the data you need to from it. That's amazing.
So-
after that time.
Right.
yeah, so scat is generally not the best source for DNA, and it's definitely degrading. So the fresher, the better.
Okay. That
Rain
makes
really
sense.
is a problem.
Okay,
As
yeah,
soon
for
as they
sure.
start getting really wet, they dry, they get wet again. The quality decreases quite
Got it.
strongly. But throughout the dry season, which is therefore our main work season,
Yeah.
it actually works very well.
Okay. So then what can you tell from the scat that you're collecting? Like what kind of data are you getting?
So the first step for the lab would always be to determine the species.
Okay.
By the end of the day, we of course assume that the dogs are usually right, but they're not 100% perfect.
Mhm.
Right.
Um, and sometimes there are even other reasons why a scat may turn out a different species, even though it's maybe not, and the dog was still right. But I have to admit, as the dog trainer, I wish that would happen more often, but sometimes the dog is just wrong. That's also
Mhm.
something I have to admit.
Right. And
Yeah.
when you're
Um,
wrong and they're right, of course you deeply apologize and say, I will trust you next time.
I said that so many times, and it's horrible. I don't know how many times I had to buy a huge treat or a huge
Yeah,
bone
right.
and give it to the dogs and just apologize for days.
Uh,
It still happens though,
Oh, I
sometimes, but
love it.
rarely.
That's amazing. Amazing. That's so funny. So, okay, so yeah, back to what data are you collecting? Like, what are you finding out about the scat?
Yeah, so starting off with the species, next step sort of, I mean, it's not exactly consecutive, right? But that's sort of
Right,
the different levels as to what we're looking at.
mhm.
Next thing
right.
would be individual,
Mm,
would be the sex of that individual. We can analyze who that individual is related to and how close they are related. Um,
wow.
Something very important in my eyes is diet. So just by
Mm,
looking at the scat, we can also find out what they've been feeding on.
aha.
Especially in case of cheetah and also African wild dogs, that's really important. They are both species that are very prone to human-wildlife conflict. They are roaming so widely that national park boundaries often are not enough. So they will, even if some of them may live in national parks, which is still rare for the cheetah, um, they will eventually move out of the park just because the area size is not large enough. So it's
Got it.
definitely a species that gets into conflict with humans very regularly. And then being able to figure out what these animals are actually feeding on is very important.
Right, because if you're getting back, data saying, well, that's a cow or a goat or something, you're like, whoopsie, that's not good. I never had thought about that until we talked last time. I found that is so amazing. And that's like, and the human wildlife conflict is such a big deal, we know, with many, many animals. And also, particularly with wild dogs, they've been quite persecuted over the years, especially. I've heard people think they're, scary, ugly, not lovable, all these kind of things, and they can be seen as a bit of a nuisance. So that's amazing to be able to. So you find it, you get all this information back, you can tell female, male, and then and just to remember, like part of the issue they're saying is that both of these species have such a wide range that they cover. So um, this is critical to get this sort of information back.
It's super helpful, and it also helps us to understand the situation on the ground better.
Right.
So human-wildlife conflict is, of course, a extremely complex topic.
Yeah.
And especially in the case of the African wild dog, it can be really detrimental to somebody's livelihood or to a whole family.
Right.
If you have a pack of these dogs roaming
Mhm.
around in your area, that's a lot of people that are substantial farmers that depend on livestock.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm,
and a pack of these dogs, they do feed quite a lot.
yes.
So it's really important to also try to objectively evaluate these situations. There are
Mhm.
surely instances where we can't really be sure which animal has actually been causing the conflict. So
Right.
this kind of analysis can be really helpful.
Right.
Yeah. And just staying with the dogs for a second, when we last talked, you told me about a really fascinating discovery about dog latrines. Could you kind of walk us through that story? Because that was amazing to me.
Yeah, very happily. So it was published a couple of years ago by a working group in Botswana that are doing fantastic research on African wild dogs that they are like many other carnivores using latrines. So a point where multiple dogs regularly defecate in order to exchange messages.
Okay.
So that was already incredible.
Mhm.
But what was even more interesting was that they were able to describe that not only one single pack used that defecation site, it was actually multiple packs.
Oh,
Um,
sounds like a
and this is, of
latrine.
course, exactly, it really sounds like a shared marking site or a communal
Right.
latrine, whatever you want to call
I
it.
was
Right, right.
thinking of a post office, they're sending each other messages, hey,
That
I
is
was
literally
here.
what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And
gosh.
if you would want to now find wild dogs or take as many pictures of them as you can. Well, if you have a spot where they all go to, that's the
That's a
spot where you
good,
want to put your cameras up.
yes, that's smart.
How
Yeah.
did you find this?
So admittingly, it was a bit easier for us, right? Because we knew this existed, so we kind of knew what we were looking for. But
Okay.
I mean, we have a scat detection dog, right? That's her job, is to find feces. So
Okay.
we didn't really expect it, but we were kind of hoping. And when we found a accumulation of feces that she indicated, so that she said this is our target species. One has to say that her target species are cheetah and African wild dog, so she actually shows them both in the same way. So it could have been cheetah too, but that location didn't match a cheetah marking site. They look somewhat
Interesting.
different.
Right.
So we got a bit excited and we're hoping. So while we were doing our scat work and we were doing some systematic camera trapping as well, we put one camera trap at this marking site.
Right. I bet you
Well,
did,
at this,
right?
yeah, exactly. At this point, in fact, it was a potential marking site. We weren't really sure. And then we also contacted some colleagues of ours from the Kalahari African Wild Dog Conservation Project who were attempting to collar wild dogs in the area. And we shared that location with them too. And a couple of days later, they were able to collar wild dogs not too far away from that site.
Oh, cool.
And once we collected our camera trap pictures, we actually also saw quite a few dogs at this location.
Wow.
Retrieving the camera traps, we also again collected scat. So there was more scat than the first time we checked.
Wow.
And this is sort of the nice thing, or can be the really nice thing about research sometimes, is when you have all these bits of information and it doesn't look like a lot at first, you collect your data, it's a point somewhere on a map, and at some point you put it all together.
Right.
And from these different data sources, scat detection, genetic analysis, camera traps, and radio collar data, it all matched exactly these observations that were described a couple of years earlier.
That's a good
So
day for
Yes.
you researchers, right?
It was a
Oh,
pretty
and that
good day.
PhD just got a
That's
whole
great.
lot better, didn't it? And I think, again,
Yeah.
just to remind people, part of why this is kind of so incredible is because the immense amount of ground you're covering, right? We're talking about kilometers, and that's a huge area. Okay, let's just call it Namibia. So the fact that you could put all these pieces together and find a hotspot like that is huge for overall like the data that you can collect, because you can do the scat, right? Getting like the physical data, then you can get the camera traps up, then you can watch behavior and movement and all this different kind of stuff. And this is huge. So after like kind of putting this all together, how is all of this helping in support of cheetah and wildlife dog conservation? Like, what's the point here, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And admittedly, I ask myself that question sometimes too. I think we all have the idea that we want to make a difference, right? And when we work in conservation, it's important to us that our job, our work actually ends up where it's supposed to be.
Right.
So I think that what we are doing is sort of a few different aspects that feed directly in conservation. One is basically just improving the method of using these dogs, which I think is really important. It's sort of like baseline research, I want to say, but it's something that is extremely applicable. So other people surveying for the same species, or like I said, even species that are ecologically similar, can now use sort of, I don't want to call it a method, it's surely too much, but sort of the approach that we used
Right.
for these species. So I think that's very helpful.
Yes.
Then, of course, the data we generate. So my PhD is one part of the picture, but there's a whole lot of other people who are now using these scat samples, using these camera trap data to continue research on these species.
Right. That's what you were saying. You can share what you learn, and you're all on the same team, basically.
Exactly.
And that's fabulous for them. And I'm sure that goes the other way. They share with you too.
Yeah, like the latrine thing is a great example of that.
Yeah.
That's right, Jenna. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sort of the third point for me, which I also find maybe among the most important one, is you just also engage with the local communities, with people on the ground, people living in these areas. So even though one can surely always ask the question, maybe I'm too overcritical myself, how much then actually goes back? But we are really trying to make a long-lasting impact when we do these projects and not just show up and collect our data.
Right.
Yeah.
Being on the ground, of course, makes a difference. And having that dog with us is an absolute game changer. So she's a fantastic conservation ambassador. She's a great door opener for any kind of conversation and conservation, I guess.
Right.
Right.
And she's really, it's quite easy for her because she's a strong working dog, but she's
Yeah.
also a lovely, has a lovely personality. So she
Aw.
really wins people over quite quickly.
Yeah.
And if she then performs a little task, that can just be like, I put a scat out, she shows me that it is the right species.
Right.
Right.
That usually makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And is this in context to like coming across people in their communities and just sort of like, hey, who are you? And here's this cute, sweet dog. And then you do tricks for her with the kids. And I just can see it being just really lovely, actually. And then that's really, like you said, good for conservation. And then you can say, we're doing this for cheetahs and wild dogs. And then all the things. Starts a conversation.
That's exactly how it is.
Yeah, that's really lovely. So, and I hadn't really thought about that until we talked last. You brought that up, and I'd never really thought about the dog being as an ambassador. That's amazing. And did you just was that surprising to you? Were you expecting that when that's sort of the first time that happened for you?
So I think I was surprised by the extent of it, to be super honest.
Yeah.
So just to give you an example, we also work in Angola, in southern Angola, in national parks that are not open to the public yet, and an absolute privilege to be allowed to work there, even with your dog.
Right.
And we are accompanied there by local rangers for our safety, but also to follow up on what's happening in the park. And these are really guys that have a very tough job, and
Yeah.
they are tough people.
Right.
And it's beautiful to see that in the beginning, they are often quite not sure what the whole story about that dog is and
Right.
what she is really doing.
Right.
And to be super honest, I mean, a couple of years ago, I really had no idea either. And it's sometimes a bit difficult to even explain why she does that
Yeah.
or why we are doing it.
Right.
And as soon as she sort of finds the first skets and shows them to us, and people see what a complex task she executes,
Right.
she usually wins everyone over.
Aw.
And what I always say is, like, at the very end of our fieldwork, we always take a group picture, and by that time, people are always having a bit of a fight about who's allowed to stand next to the dog.
Yeah.
So yeah, that always makes me super
that would
happy.
be me.
Yes, they definitely open doors and break down barriers. I was curious.
Exactly.
I know that CCF does some stuff with education. Do you actually ever go into schools or anything like that and try to explain to the kids? Because I know in other experts we've talked to, sometimes they say going to the kids, and then the kids go home and talk to the parents, and then it changes the relationships. I was curious if that's ever something you have done with them.
That's like when we talked
Yes,
to the Black Mambas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Amazing.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, we've done that. To be fair to the schools, we've actually taken our livestock guardian dogs. So we have
livestock
at
guardian
CCF
dogs. Okay, right.
exactly a big livestock guardian dog project, and I mean they are doing fantastic conservation work as well.
That's great.
And these dogs, I mean, they're huge and they're so gentle.
Yeah.
So bringing
Yes.
them to a school is fantastic. But
These big
we
Anatolian
have a lot
dogs.
of exactly.
Mhm.
We have a lot of school groups visiting,
Okay.
and there we are regularly doing little demos for them.
That's amazing.
And
I
yeah,
love
it's
that.
amazing.
It is amazing. And just back to like the importance part of this ambassadorship, it really is. It's so critical to involve the community, because this is 50% of conservation is the people who are living and working and trying to feed their families and thrive and all of this. And it's not to be discounted. And mostly we always do say the human wildlife conflict is very nuanced and very complex. And we have to see that human side of it as very legitimate and challenging as well. So it's so great to hear about the dogs being that kind of ambassador. And now I'd like to step back a bit and talk about the dogs specifically that you work with. These dogs are just so amazing in their ability and intelligence and enthusiasm, and they just seem to thrive in this environment. So talk to us about how you train them and what it takes to become a scat detection dog and then being out in the field with them. But talk to us about the training.
Yeah. So maybe first I should introduce the dogs a little bit. So
Yes, tell
I'm
us.
working with with two female Belgian Malinois,
Okay.
and they're actually from a local breeder here in Otjiwarongo, so close to where CCF is located.
Okay, so Belgian
And we
Malinois.
started training them when they were about 6 months of age.
Okay.
And the process is actually fairly simple, to be super honest. The
Okay.
only thing they need to learn in the beginning is there is a certain scent and a certain smell.
Right.
And this smell, if you find it, if you have it in front of you, leads to a reward.
Right.
So we start super simple. We literally present it to them in a glass, in our hand. You can do any kind of substance, anything that has a smell, you will be able to teach your dog to find it. I mean, there's so many examples out there of substances people ask their dog to find. And I mean, we chose Cheetah Scat.
Right.
So that is definitely quite a smelly substance, which is also why the initial sort of imprinting actually is quite quick. So what we do is we present these to the dog. We ask the dog to sit when she comes to the right scat, and she gets a reward. And the reward for them is a play session.
Yes. Now, just real quick question, just so I know this is a weird question, but what level, like what level of degradation are we talking about in the scat? Do you start super fresh, or is it like been out for a really long time? Does that make a difference to the dogs?
So it truly does make a difference. The dogs, their nose is so well tuned that we actually need to be quite careful that we don't teach them the wrong thing. So quantity surely makes a difference. Are we only rewarding them for very small scats, very large scats, very old or very fresh ones? So by the end of the day, it's about variety. Anything we want our dogs to find is what we need to show them in training. If we don't want them to find very, very old scats because we say, for example, well, there's no point for us because we can't extract DNA from it, then we could teach that.
Wow.
But sort of my rule of thumb is like any age, because it's always worth finding.
Right.
And in terms of size, as long as it's big enough so that I can collect it and we can again extract DNA from it, that's fine. And that's sort of what we are trying. And this diversity also goes for where are the animals from. So we have some scats from animals in enclosures, but also from the wild. So there's different diets, different populations. All of this will make a difference.
Yeah.
And the more we present to our dog in training, the easier it is going to be for them to piece that together, to generalize, and then find a new scat out in the field and match that to that existing scent database in their head, sort of.
Yeah. That's incredible, because they need to have some flexibility. They have to have a range there. It can't just be that's or because you're going to find all kinds of stuff. That is just incredible. So I just find that amazing. They're so smart that it's that easy to train them. And that's that breed too. I think they're used a lot with this. So tell us about the dogs specifically. So what are their names and what are their personalities?
Yes. So their names fit their personality quite well, actually. So like I said, two Belgian Malinois. One is Enyakwa, which means the talented one in the local Oshiwambo language.
Oh, beautiful.
And the other one is Jamena.
Oh.
And Jamena means the brave one, the protector.
Oh.
Yeah, and like I said, this is quite fits quite well. So Enyakwa is actually a bit of a teacher's pet, if you want to call it like that. So she learns quite quickly. She really likes to execute tasks. Gamena is a bit more of a wild catch. They're both good working dogs, but since I can largely work only with one dog at a time, most of my field projects I actually did with Enyakwa, with Enya, as I call her.
Okay, so we'll call them Enya and Mina for their nicknames. So they're beautiful names. So you're mostly with Enya then?
Correct.
Yeah, and what's she like then in the field?
Yes. So Enya and I have been doing the majority of the field work over the past years.
Okay.
And that really means not last year, there I was forced to spend quite a bit of time at the computer, but the years before, we would be out weeks at a time, come back to CCF, have a little break, recover, and then head out again.
Wow. Lovely. And now with the dogs, are they with you all the time, or do they live with you nonstop? Are they in kennels? Tell us about their sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, so we have a bit of a special setup here at CCF. It sort of fell into place that they're actually staying with the family here.
Oh.
So it's lovely people with two little kids.
Aww.
And exactly. So I kind of have the socializing with people and
That's
kids
great.
is done by other people for me. So that's
Hmm.
wonderful, of course.
And it's a nice break for them
Um,
too. It really
Yeah,
is
they actually have
Correct.
a nice life. They have a happy
diverse.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well rounded. Yeah.
Mhm.
And especially because for these kind of dogs, the biggest punishment really is not being allowed to work, not joining a
Uh-huh.
trip.
Mm.
Right.
So, since I can take only one with me,
Mhm.
there's always one that sort of stays behind.
Uh-oh.
And like I said, that's heartbreaking for them. So knowing
Yes.
that they're at least with their family in their stable
Right.
social environment that they're
Yeah.
used to is
Yeah.
really important to me. So I'm very happy with that setup.
Hmm.
Right, because anyone who knows if it's like if you have two dogs and you go if you were to go for a walk with the one and leave the other, this is like, why am I
Torture.
being
Yeah.
punished?
Right.
Like
Yeah. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
terrible, heartbreaking. So that's really lovely. So they can have some fun playtime with the family and do their little family life and then go and get to work. It's like, sorry, and yet it's my turn, you're off the clock. So that's very sweet. So
Exactly.
I would love it if you could tell us if you have a favorite story about your time out with the dogs. Is there anything that comes to mind when you think one of the most beautiful moments, or your favorite part, or just what kind of comes to mind for you?
Yeah, wonderful question. Thank you. There's surely a lot of stories that I could tell. And a few of them, of course, involve Enya and me being out in the field. We had like wonderful encounters already with a group of African wild dogs, 14
Mhm.
dogs, approaching us in the bush, and Enya just sit next to me and waits patiently until
Wow.
they've passed us, and they just had a look at us and then sort of continued.
Wow.
Um, we had a night where I was sleeping, and Enya suddenly did like a very sort of gentle growl,
Mhm.
gentle little bark, and I woke up and realized that there was an elephant just in front of our window.
Oh my
Oh
Um,
gosh.
goodness.
3 o'clock at night, exactly. And Enya was really like, be quiet, but wake up. Like,
Yeah.
good to wake up.
Excuse
Uh,
me. Excuse
Yeah,
me. Oh dear.
And
exactly.
when you say just in front of your window, do you mean like a car window or a tent window, or what kind of window?
So that was actually in a house, luckily.
Okay,
Okay,
Um,
good.
okay.
yeah, but it was amazing. It was like middle of the
Wow.
night, everyone else was sleeping, so we
Yeah.
were just sitting there next to each other watching that elephant. That
Wow.
once it moved on, actually destroyed our kitchen. It was a bit silly, and I didn't hear it,
Oh.
to be super honest,
Okay,
because I went
okay.
back to bed. But oh well. Um,
Sleep is important. Sleep is important.
exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
So
oh my
Um,
goodness.
but I
wow,
think,
amazing.
oh
No, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I think sometimes it's almost more not single stories. I think it's
Mm,
generally being out in that incredible African environment, and experiencing nature and
yeah.
animals,
Hmm.
sort of while you are on a mission, on a job to
Hmm.
achieve something that you really believe in,
Yeah.
and doing that with your dog is absolutely rewarding and
That
really
seems
special.
so amazing. Yeah, I can imagine you just are like, I can't believe this is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely.
And
that's
I think
amazing.
like Jen and I both been to South Africa, and I mean, there is, and I've been out on safari, and there's just this combination of the energy. And I remember we were sitting on in one of our cars out and watching the sunset, and there's just with that, it was the acacia tree, the sunset. I mean, it gives me chills just thinking about it. And here comes like a large female hyena, and she just kind of trekked through the road, checked us out, paused. She's like looking around, sniffing around. And it's just like there's this moment where you feel more human than you've ever felt, and just this connection so deeply. All of your senses are so heightened and you're so connected to your surroundings. And when you're sharing that with an animal and with a dog, and you are having very similar experiences, and you know that and they know that, that must just be absurdly magical.
I agree with you. That's what I wanted to say. I definitely agree with you. Um, I think being able to experience that with your own eyes, of course,
Yeah.
is amazing. But also being able to sort of have that friend, that companion with you, that
Yeah.
also allows you to get a whole different view into nature by
Yeah.
using her eyes. I mean, when you work together so closely and you know each other for so long,
Yeah.
I mean, I can get a very good idea if there's a potential danger close just by looking at
That's
her,
right.
Yes,
just
right.
by
Exactly. Yeah.
seeing how she behaves.
Right.
Incredible.
So it's literally almost like you have a whole additional set of senses, and which
Yes.
makes the whole experience much more holistic.
Yeah.
Oh my
And,
gosh, I
more
love that.
secure. I would feel a lot more secure knowing there's a dog who can sense things
Yeah.
that I might not be able to sense
And they have a
too.
different
Yeah.
energy to the wildlife too. That is incredible. I love that. So, Tim, we always ask our guests the same question, and I'm going to put it to you. Why is this work so important in conservation, and why should we care about scat detection and the data and the information you're collecting in support of wildlife conservation? Like, why is this conversation so important?
Because I think it can make a difference. I think it can really make a difference in conservation from the very core of simply being a research method that can be applied very successfully and that we really don't know yet how well we can use it. I think there's a whole different level of possible applications that we haven't figured out yet. I mean,
Yeah.
it's always like when people come up with something new they would like to train their dog, all they need to be able to figure out is like how to communicate to the dog what it is that you want to find. The rest is done by the dog.
Right.
Right.
So I think it matters because it creates knowledge. I think it matters because it creates awareness. Like there's so much attention you can draw to conservation by putting the dog on the forefront. There are so many examples of like, a fantastic project with super charismatic wild animals, but what makes it on the front page of the newspaper is actually the detection dog, right? Because
Right.
the story of mankind's best friend working hard to save another species
Yeah.
is beautiful.
That
Yes.
is.
And it's not only beautiful because it's true, right? It's really not
Mhm.
made up.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is really beautiful because it's true. And it's also this, again, the dog's the ambassador and bringing people together in such a significant and important cause, saving these beautiful wild animals. The cheetah, what an elegant creature, and the wild dogs, like they have a sense of humor. They're amazing. They're incredibly cool looking, all of the things. And I think it really is what you were saying too before, how incredible that you now have this whole other access through the dog's senses. I think that's such an incredible way to look at it and how much more we can learn. It's like a superhero. You've got a superhero working with you. And, they can learn so much for us. They can bring us so much data and information and knowledge, which is only in support of just this incredible planet that we live on. And I think we love hearing about your work. To me, it's the absolute dream job. I cannot think of anything better, honestly. What incredible work you're doing. And again, thank you so much to you for speaking with us. Thank you so much to CCF for, all the work you're doing. And we will put a link in show notes for your website and all the rest. But thank you so
Can I
much.
just say one
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that
Yeah.
struck me about this is that in so much of science, it's just data collection and data analysis, and all this stuff has to do with technology and machines. And there's something so beautiful to me about the fact that this is nature, and we're getting better at learning how to use that to support nature. That it's not just a computer program, that it's actually an animal that we're like, the sky's kind of the limit in a
Yeah.
way, that we're showing that you can use these dogs in so many ways. And
Wow.
I just think
Yeah.
there's something so powerful about that it's nature that's all supporting nature rather than it's not just purely technology.
I
It's
love that.
actually,
That's so true, Jen. Yeah, I
thought
think
that
that's
was
what.
very
Yes.
amazing. Yeah. So that struck me.
Yeah, thank you. I sometimes almost think it's so complex, but yet so
So
simple.
simple.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. There's so much thought that we put in it, so much training, so much analysis that then again needs technology. But
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm actually doing the job, I
Yeah.
wonder if somebody would be with me if they would actually find it boring, because it's really almost taking your dog for a walk.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I can't
Uh-huh.
imagine it being boring, but Jen, that
Yeah.
is a really astute observation. And yes, and I think this is partly what Tim was talking about before, and just sort of, it really is, it's like animals helping animals. It's not just like, that's an incredible thought. Well, again, Tim, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Again, your work, it is a dream come true. So best of luck with the PhD. Hopefully that gets wrapped up for you soon. And we'll keep an eye on your work, and be safe out there. And just, yeah, I imagine you and the dogs just like sitting there, maybe cracking a beer at the end of a day, just watching a beautiful sunset, and you both enjoying that. So next time I watch the sunset, I will think of you and your team. So thanks so much today for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Takeaway. So sister, I just want to pick up basically where we kind of got to, where we left off at the end. And it was with Tim, and when he was talking about being out in the field with these dogs that with all these different senses, and how they opened up a door to a whole nother sort of world for him. And he said, quote, a whole additional set of senses.
Yeah.
And a quote, view into nature when working with dogs, and just how you get this whole new perspective. And that was also, wow, right. I mean, he has this window from species to species, and then we kind of moved on. But later you broke in before we ended, and said, hey, hold on a second. I just want to talk about how this is so incredible that, and you said, quote, nature supporting nature, and how it's really one species saving another species. And then Tim was like, yes, this is, quote, mankind's best friend working hard to save another species. And I just thought that was really poignant moment that we've never had on the podcast, where, and of course it was interesting that it kind of came at the very end of the conversation. But this was a new perspective that you caught and luckily called out. And I would have loved to spend a little more time with him on that. But to me, it just leads to like, what are the possibilities and for us working with dogs? And I don't know, that to me was a new awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it too, like we talk so much about, new ways of that technology works and new ways. And not that this isn't partly that, but just the fact that almost it's like, of course, it's still progress, but something about it felt like going back to a simpler way of doing things was
like
so
old
cool to me.
fashioned. Yeah,
but using both, like using technology and using this dog who, like he said, you can teach them to smell anything. And I was thinking of the dogs at the airport who are sniffing for drugs, the dogs that look for cadavers, the dogs, that it's such an untapped resource almost. And isn't it interesting that also we've had range riders and also Oscar Rodriguez too, like two people we've talked to about working with dogs to better life for everyone, which is
so true.
That I just struck me about Oscar too, but just that I think something about that, I think because I just have such a respect and love for dogs. Not that I don't, if other animals could do it, I would love that too, but it's just such a cool thing and how dogs just love to be with their people and
work
do
with
what they're
their
supposed
people.
to do. And just that fact, like the fact that he was like, I have this dog who loves to work. So how can I make this work for both of us? And just how smart he was to, anyway, the whole thing was it just keeps going,
Yeah.
But yes, it is really, really cool.
But you think about it, to your point, like what other species wants to work, like working dogs, they work to please too. Part of what they're bred to do is respond, be in this relationship to the human specifically. They want to work with you, and they want to do a good job. And I don't know, like, and there are, I'm sure, other species, but do they want to do it in the same way?
Right.
Also, so it's like behavior, and that they have these incredible noses. The what they can detect and decipher is astounding.
It is.
And but I just thought that it was such a simple idea but we've never quite come across that. And you're so right about talking with Daniel, talking with Oscar. This is our third episode basically that involves a huge dog component. And this is partly why we wanted to talk to them.
Right.
But that is really incredible. And all these different levels, like look what we can do. Wolf conservation, mental health and healing and recovery. And for not just humans, dogs are amazing. I think I'm never not astounded about the reciprocal relationship that humans can have with dogs. And you know, you even think back to when we talked to Rick McIntyre, and he was talking about how, well, I believe that humans and dogs evolved together. And this was an evolution that started 30, 60, I don't know, however many thousands of years ago. And his belief is, watching wolf behavior, how similar human family dynamics and human behavior is to wolf behavior, and that's somewhere in between there, for all the reasons we know. This went from wolves to canines, and maybe that's part of the reason we have such a bond, because there's such a recognition there, like on a deep genetic level, even. Anyway, really cool. I really love that. And of course there were other highlights through the episode that it was just a great conversation. I loved talking to him. It was so cool. And just, you know, it was interesting too. I'll just add one last thing. When he and I spoke in the pre-interview, he said it's really important for me to talk about the joy and the experience of this work. And you know, when we talked to him just now, it was, you know, these dogs are there, and what they get to experience together in this beautiful landscape with them and their personalities, and just how lovely they are, and their sweetness and beauty, and that translates and transfers out to people they come across, where the dogs then become they're not scary, because Belgian Malinois can look very intimidating. Oh yeah, they're intense dogs. Right, and yet, you know, these dogs become this ambassador, and that again, they're ambassadors now. Anyway, we could go on and on, which we will hopefully every episode. So thanks so much to Tim and CCF for being with us today. What an absolute pleasure to speak with him and learn about the greatest job on earth. We'll just call it that. And for more information on all things cheetahs and scat detection and CCF's dog programs and Tim, please visit their website, cheetah.org. And as always, all the links will be in our show notes of this episode, or via our website, kindredpodcast.co, where you can also sign up for our newsletter and get lots of more Kindred content, which is fab. And please subscribe via Apple Podcasts and join our Kindred Plus community with extra bonus episodes, which you get 1 month free as well. So again, thanks so much to Tim. And if I'm remembering correctly, you can actually stay on site at the Namibia facility at CCF. You know what? I was just thinking when you're chatting about the details, I'm like, wouldn't it be a fun trip? A fun trip to go visit? And I'm thinking, you know. Yes, ma'am. You heard it here. My sister wants to go to Namibia with her sister. I hate going far places. You know that. But for something like that, to be able to see what they do there and just have a little day in the life and in a beautiful little part of the world, it would be amazing. Okay, You have all heard it here. I'm not that cruel that I'm going to hold her to it.
You know what? A lot of podcasts do this where they take trips.
They sure do. They sure do.
Field work. Hello.
Right. So if you want us to go to Namibia, subscribe away, everyone. No, that's amazing. Okay. We'll let you know. We'll keep you posted. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. We love doing this so much, and we so appreciate you listening and your support. And please share this episode. It's just another joyful, really interesting, really impacting conversation. So take care and lots of love.
Bye.
Kindred is hosted by me and my sister Jen, produced by Kat Gaddy and myself, sound production and editing by Dan Cooper, original music by Ellie Grace, and our Kindred artwork was created by Lindsay Coffin. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts, and feel free to contact us through our website at kindredpodcast.co, where you can also find details about Kindred Plus, our subscription service, as well as links to our social media accounts and show notes.